The galaxy was vast, with stars and planets that no human mind could fully comprehend. And in one corner of this infinite cosmos, there existed a planet named Zorith, a world that was beautiful and mysterious, covered in sweeping landscapes, towering crystal forests, and vast oceans of shimmering liquid. On this world ruled a race of beings known as the Zorathians, tall, regal creatures with smooth blue skin, large silvery eyes, and long flowing hair that shifted colors like the aurora borealis. Their technology far surpassed that of humanity, and their society was one of ancient traditions and powerful monarchies. Among the Zorathian royalty was Princess Liriana, the daughter of King Zirith, the mighty ruler of the planet. She was not just beautiful, but also fiercely independent and intelligent. She had learned to wield the power of diplomacy, commanding respect across the galaxy. But as she came of age, a dark shadow loomed over her royal life, the matter of her marriage. Princess Liriana was expected to choose a mate who would be not only worthy of her, but also someone who could strengthen the Zorathian Empire. There were many suitors from distant alien worlds. The Harkians, a race of fiery-eyed giants, the Velians, a species of telepathic beings, and even the sleek, serpentine Tmerans, who were known for their cunning and intelligence. Yet, despite their allure and power, Liriana was not swayed. She had her own reasons, deeply rooted in her upbringing and her people's ancient beliefs, for choosing her future mate. She had sworn an oath to herself. No human would ever be her mate. The Zorathians had an ancient and somewhat contentious history with humans. The first meeting between the two races had been disastrous. A misunderstanding had led to an intergalactic skirmish that nearly destroyed a Zorathian fleet. Since then, the Zorathians had viewed humans as unpredictable, often dangerous, and beneath their cultural standards. To Liriana, the idea of marrying a human was unthinkable. They were far too chaotic, too primitive, and too volatile. She had seen enough of the humans' emotional outbursts, their frail bodies, and their reckless ambition to know they were not worthy of a Zorathian princess. However, her father, King Zirith, had a different opinion. He saw an opportunity to forge an alliance with the rapidly expanding human colonies in the galaxy. Such an alliance could bring the Zorathian Empire an unprecedented level of power. He had spoken to Liriana several times about the importance of considering a human suitor. But each time she had flatly refused. "No, father," she had said firmly. "I would rather remain unmarried than be forced into such a union." King Zirith, though disappointed, respected his daughter's resolve. But he was not a ruler who accepted no easily. He had other ways of ensuring his plan would succeed. Without telling Liriana, he secretly arranged for the human diplomat, Ambassador Quinn Adams, to come to Zorith for talks. He hoped that during their diplomatic discussions, a spark might ignite between the princess and the human diplomat, making the match not only beneficial but also something Liriana might eventually accept. The day Quinn Adams arrived was like any other. The majestic silver ships that connected the distant worlds were a common sight in Zoritha's atmosphere. Yet, when the human vessel descended, the air was thick with anticipation. Liriana had heard about Ambassador Adams. He was tall, with dark hair and piercing green eyes, a man who seemed to carry the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders. But she was determined to remain unmoved by his appearance or his title. He was just another human after all. The grand hall of Zoritha's palace was filled with dignitaries and attendants as the ambassador stepped off his ship, flanked by his aides. The air seemed to hum with tension as Liriana, with her regal presence, entered the room. She wore a gown of shimmering silver, her eyes cold and aloof as she regarded the human ambassador. "Ambassador Adams," she said, her voice unwavering, Welcome to Zorath. I trust your journey was without incident. Quinn bowed slightly, his eyes meeting hers. Your Highness, the journey was uneventful, though it is an honor to meet you in person. There was a brief pause. The tension between the two of them was palpable. Liriana took a deep breath, scanning the human diplomat's face, trying to read him. There was something different about him, but she wasn't sure what it was. His demeanor was calm, almost too calm for someone who represented a race she despised. I trust you understand the importance of this meeting. Liriana continued, her voice clipped. Zorath seeks peace, but not at the cost of its honor. I understand, Your Highness, Quinn replied, his tone respectful. My purpose here is not to dishonor Zorath, but to find a path to mutual benefit. Humans and Zorathians can coexist, if we are willing to put aside our differences. Liriana smirked. A noble thought, but I've seen little evidence to suggest that humans are capable of such diplomacy. Quinn's eyes softened. Not all humans are the same, Your Highness. Just as not all Zorathians are the same. Something in his words caught her off guard, but she quickly masked her surprise. She had heard the stories of the ambassador's skill in negotiation, but there was something unsettlingly sincere about him. She could almost feel the weight of his gaze, as if he were searching for something more than just a diplomatic agreement. Days passed, and Quinn Adams and Princess Liriana met several times. On the surface, their discussions were civil, though there was a clear tension between them. Liriana remained steadfast in her belief that a union with a human was unthinkable. But Quinn, with his patience and charm, never wavered in his respect for her. He listened to her concerns, never pushing her beyond her comfort zone. Slowly, a tentative trust began to form. One evening, after a long day of discussions, Liriana found herself standing by the palace balcony, staring out at the vast, starlit expanse of space. The sky was clear, and the sight of distant galaxies filled her with awe. It was in this moment of solitude that Quinn found her. Your Highness, he said, his voice calm. May I join you? Liriana turned, her heart fluttering slightly at the sound of his voice. She nodded, and Quinn stepped up beside her, his gaze following hers toward the stars. You know, Quinn said after a long silence, I've spent much of my life trying to understand Zorathian culture. You're an extraordinary people, Your Highness. But sometimes I think the greatest strength of any race lies not in their ability to conquer, but in their ability to change. Liriana raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Change? Not just in politics, but in hearts, Quinn said, his eyes meeting hers. I know that humans have made mistakes in the past, but we've learned. We've changed. I believe if you give us a chance, we could learn to work together. Truly work together. There was an honesty in his words that Liriana couldn't ignore. For the first time, she felt the wall she had built around her heart begin to crumble. I don't know, she said, her voice softer now. I've been taught my whole life to distrust humans. I understand, Quinn said gently. But perhaps, just perhaps, we can teach each other something new. And maybe one day you'll see humans differently.